We like to pretend we prepare for these.
A little bit of preparation, a lot of bit of joking around. Think fast.
Seriously? Ooh!
When things are wrong, I'll be by your side. Even when you want to cry.
All right.
Hey,
Welcome.
hey.
Welcome to the Naked Apple. We got a show for you
Welcome.
guys today.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. Just a little bit of
We
one.
like to pretend we prepare for these.
A little bit of preparation, a lot of bit of joking around. Think fast.
Seriously?
How the hell do I do that?
3 for 3.
It's all right. I maxed out your mic with that hit, so
I'm going to have to get a little whiteboard behind me. Keep a tally of all the times you've missed. Well, hit.
well, your mic.
Just go ahead and set that over here.
It's
where
going to
it
become a
usually
running
sits
gag for the
rest.
beginning of our show every single time
Every
now.
time.
Every time. Every time. I
I don't think you could do that if you tried, actually.
I bet I could.
Yeah, now you actually hit me. So you just got to try to hit the mic, and then you'll hit me. That's
I'm just that bad.
That
I'm just that bad. Just gonna sit over here in abject failure. I can't even say the word abject.
All right, Mike, we're down to you for pitching. Everyone else is throwing their shoulders out. We just need you to pretend like you're going to throw a ball. Just throw balls.
Just pretend.
Throw it
I can
way
pretend.
left. Way left. Nails a strike every time.
All right. That was a waste of a minute.
No, that was a
Anyway.
great minute. That's a great minute.
Oh, you and your jokes.
Yep.
Your jokes.
So, what good news do you have for us today?
Me?
Yeah.
Let's see. There was a lot of good news today, actually. Trump defunded the WHO. So,
Woo.
I think that's good news.
I do too.
I mean, considering everything that they did.
Yeah, it gave him a 30-day notice to straighten things out. Right?
Yeah, they gave him a 30-day notice to straighten things out. So, essentially what happened was they've been investigating the WHO's dealings with the coronavirus because essentially from the beginning, the WHO didn't do the investigation they were supposed to do. They were basically just having the Chinese government say, hey, everything's going great. And so the WHO was like, oh, okay. So they turned around, everything's going great.
Just insert.
Despite doctors from Wuhan and inside China saying, no, things are very bad.
Need to insert that meme of Rambo.
Yeah, right? That's the screen grab for this week. So the WHO, they didn't do a proper investigation at the beginning. They just continually regurgitated what they were told without ever actually doing any real work. And then, this whole time they've been defending these different stances, different things that they've done, while putting the rest of the world at risk by not reporting actual facts,
Right.
actual things. They've been just putting out propaganda the whole time. And so, we've done an investigation into them because of it. The U.S. is their number one contributor, has been for
Shocker.
forever, because we're the number one contributor to
Because that's what happens
pretty much
with
everybody.
every world organization.
Yeah, exactly. So, all this comes out. So Trump today came out and said, look, you have 30 days to stop it. Stop it. Otherwise, we are permanently pulling funding.
And we need to tweet him furiously. Now do the UN.
I'm just gonna tweet him the picture from what's that movie, The Click, where the dog with the duck, and then the angel guy comes in and says, I saw your work with the duck. Gonna tweet him that, and then be like, good, now do the UN.
Now do the UN. Just send him a bunch of moving trucks. You got 30 days.
You got 30 days.
Get out.
Yeah, exactly. So, that was, in my opinion, a good thing. Today, what else good happened today? Well, this is kind of more yesterday, but the vaccine studies came back with the volunteers, and it came back positive.
That's good.
They're doing good with the vaccines.
So that means we can finally leave our houses.
Not quite.
Oh.
That just means that we'll probably have a vaccine by sometime next year. So, but the good thing about that is that because those came back positive and it's looking like we're making progress and these different things, the stock market went up.
Hey.
Also, there was some stuff added to some bills about supporting cannabis, and so my cannabis stock went through the roof. So much money on cannabis right now. I'm making so much money on cannabis.
You're on a high, but not that kind of high.
Right. That's right. It's a stock market high.
Stock
Market high.
I do declare.
So that was good for me. I made good money on the Aurora cannabis stocks I bought.
Good.
So that was a good day.
Good.
It was a good day.
Good.
Trying to think of what else good happened today. You got anything else to add?
I can't remember if it was today or yesterday, but so there's been a lot of talk around town, around the country, of police officers executing questionable orders.
Ah, yes.
For example,
Thought that was going a completely different direction for police officers executing.
Wait for it.
I haven't heard this one before. I thought I was waiting for good news.
For example, you have like the hairdresser in Texas had her business shut down because she opened too early, while next door a dog groomer could continue his business. Things like that. Just around the country, you got cops pulling people out of beaches and everywhere because
if you go in the water, we're gonna take you out of the water.
Mm-hmm.
Because
sternly
safety.
But I'm by myself.
Doesn't matter. You're in the
in
water,
the ocean,
by
myself.
Water is bad for you. There's
Away
a chance
from
that if you
everyone.
are standing in 2 inches of water that you might drown, and we can't have that.
So
Because those COVID deaths count, and they're terrible.
they're everywhere, even in the ocean. So there's a bunch of that going around, and some good news is we have a little bit of a clip from it. In New Jersey, a gym decided, you know what, we're opening up because the gym owner, if I recall the story correctly, didn't really qualify for the PPP loan stuff, and
Doesn't matter if you qualify or not. You know how long it takes to get those things.
Yeah,
unless you're like really
unless
tight
you're
buddy with the
bank.
banks.
Yeah.
Good luck.
So he finally said, you know what? No, I'm opening. I don't care because I need to survive. And for the most part, Mike and I are of the same opinion of people will be smart, mostly, and be adults, mostly, of if you don't want to go out, don't go out. If you're fine taking a risk, take a risk.
Here's my view on it. Like, simplest breakdown view of this, okay? Imagine that you have a fridge, and on your fridge, you have a button that changes the ice from crushed to cubed and back again.
Uh-huh.
Okay?
Yeah.
Now, when you use the crushed ice, it blocks up the thing unless you use it a lot, right? Because the crushed ice sticks in there, and then it freezes together and blocks everything, right?
Right.
So you can ask people kindly to stop using the crushed ice. And most of them will, and you'll still have to clean it out every once in a while. But for the most part, it's not going to be a big deal, right?
Right.
But you can also take a piece of tape over the button, and say, do not touch. But you know what happens when you put a sign on something that says do not touch?
Well, you got to see why you don't touch it.
Well, literally everybody is going to go touch the button.
Is it not working?
Literally everyone. Like, oh, why?
It's working fine.
Let's just push this button until that's the way people work. We instinctively push against anything that tells us no.
Especially in the United States.
Especially in the U.S. So you are going to get far better results by simply saying, hey, look, the idea is that we don't want you people that don't care whether or not you get the virus to give it to old or susceptible people that could possibly die from it. So would you please, when you go out into public, wear a mask, not because we care about you, but because we care about old people that can't, that they have to go shopping too. They want to go out eating too. They want to go do things too.
Yes.
So wear a damn mask, and I'm fine with that. Whenever I go someplace that's out in public, enclosed places, or places that ask me to wear a mask, I wear a mask. I carry one in my back pocket just in case.
Mm-hmm.
If I am by myself in a group of my family, way away from everybody, I'm not wearing a mask. If I'm outside, I'm not wearing a mask.
Yep.
If I go indoors into a store where other people exist in my personal space, because they always do, I'm going to wear a mask, not because I'm afraid of this stuff, but because I'm kind enough to consider other people. And not because they're requiring it, not because it's law here, because it's really not.
Yeah.
And most places around here don't ask you to. But out of the kindness of my heart, and because I actually care about people, I'll throw one on.
You heard it here, ladies and gentlemen. Mike has a heart.
I do.
He has a heart. Small as it may be.
It
He
is
has a heart.
It is possibly 7 or 8 sizes too small. But it does exist in its small being form.
So, rim shot. So this guy decided to open up. Of course, a large crowd gathers. This is right before they opened up.
Ah, yes.
And
all right, so this is a news clip from Fox 5,
which I think is a local affiliate there.
Yeah, and this is from
from New York. This is from New York.
Yeah, this is from New York. Yeah, Fox 5 is in New York, but this is from the
New Jersey.
Attilis Gym in New Jersey.
Yep. And so crowd had gathered because they want to go exercise, because like most other people, they've gained I think that's part of COVID-19 is you gain 19 pounds. And all these people wanting to get rid of those 19 pounds they've had from staying inside for the last 4 to 6 weeks. And
it's like 54 for me.
It's 54 pounds.
I mean,
So-
I've lost 5 pounds during the whole pandemic, but it's 54 pounds that
it
I've gained during the pandemic that I need to.
The average across the board is 19 for everyone. The average gain is 19.
Right.
Some may be above average. Way
it's 54, but I'm trying to flatten the curve.
So the police show up. Crowd kind of gets riled up beforehand because, like I said before, there's been lots of not so fun news of police showing up and executing authoritarian type orders, and hasn't been nice for people. So that's basically what this crowd is expecting. And the police here, this officer finally gets the crowd quiet down enough for him to tell them what's going to happen.
But when Belmar police showed up, this happened.
You are all in violation of the executive order. On that note, have a good day. Everybody be safe.
But later, the police handed down a disorder.
So this covers the bad news end of it ish, but it's still not that bad. But it's good news where the officer steps in and he says, "Formerly, you were all in violation of executive order." He said, "On that note, have a good day, be safe," and walks away. No altercations, nothing like that. And it's just a breath of fresh air, even though afterwards they come back with a disorderly conduct thing, which isn't really that bad compared to
like
what
the
they,
kind of ticket you get when your like volume is up too loud on your stereo in your house and your neighborhood complains. Like,
right. So yeah, that's some good news.
It's a slap on the wrist.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure they're still open, still operating, and probably getting more disorderly conduct tickets.
Probably. I mean, it tops, what store was it that is now up to like 70 grand in fines? The moment I heard about it yesterday, I'll have to look it up.
Was it the barber?
It might have been the barber.
The barber in Washington.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
It was either Washington or
Gets
Oregon
fined like
or something
$14,000 for each haircut that he does.
That's the one.
That's the one. There
That's
he
the
is.
one. And they were up
So,
to
yeah,
70 grand
compared to that,
yesterday when
just
I
a little
when I
slap
last
on the
heard
wrist.
about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's that. So
Yeah.
We'll take a quick break here, and when we come back, it'll be on to. Are we on the bad news now?
I think so. Yeah.
Oh,
Or at least
so-
not as happy fun.
well. Here's a quick break and back to the bad news. And we're back.
We are back. Back again.
Guess who's back? Back. Trevor's friend.
Where?
Uh-oh. There we go.
Yeah, so now it's
The more disappointing news of the day.
that's probably a better word than bad news.
Yeah, it's disappointing. That's all. I mean, I don't even know if I can call it disappointing at this point. Like it's more of just like I just kind of expect it, you know, which is disappointing that I just kind of expect it at this point. Or
it's disappointing that you expect it, and it's disappointing that nothing really happens.
You know, the funniest thing about this to me is, and we're going to get into this in a second, but the funniest thing about this piece of news to me is that this happens, you know, here in the last couple of days, but it's like nowhere. Nobody's talking about it at all.
Nothing.
You know, and
Orange man bad.
But Twitter's freaking out about Trump's taking hydroxychloroquine. What? Why?
But he's too fat to take
He's
that.
He's too fat to take that. That's gonna do terrible things to him. He's fat. He's morbidly obese.
Thanks, Wilhelm.
I just can't with it anymore, man. Can't.
So yeah, we're talking about everyone's favorite representative, Ilhan
Omar.
Ilhan Omar. Representative out of Wisconsin.
I believe so. I can double check that information. Fact check.
Fact check.
Fact check.
Fact check on the fly.
Ilhan Omar is an American politician serving as the U.S. representative for Minnesota, not Wisconsin.
Minnesota.
How dare you disgrace Wisconsin?
Not Wisconsin. Not Wisconsin. Minnesota.
Minnesota. Yep. She's a representative for Minnesota's 5th congressional district since 2019. I'm so sorry. Though apparently anything that happens in her district is her fault. And I don't mean that like as in anything bad that happens in her district. That's not her fault. Anything good that happens in her district is her fault. And that is where this whole story comes from. So you heard the story this morning, right?
I did, yeah. I heard
So essentially what happened was there was a charity going on in Wisconsin. Do you remember what charity it was?
I want to say blue something, but I think that was the thing she was using.
Charity. It was a church charity. I'm trying to remember.
Oh yeah, Older Than Dirt. This church.
Yes. Okay. It was in a mom that actually brought this news story out. So
He's got it.
I've got it. I've got an article right here. I'm looking through here real quick. So, the local Imam Twakal Ismail partnered with the GMCC to deliver meals to seniors and disabled individuals in immediate risk of hunger.
GMCC.
Yep, the GMCC. So a local Imam partners with this group to deliver meals.
That's a bit of a Freudian there.
A little forward. Anyway, so he partners with the GMCC to deliver meals to seniors and disabled individuals. And so they start up this program. They start doing this, and they have several partners and major donors, including the Imam's charitable organization, Darul Hadith. I'm probably butchering the pronunciation of that. And GMCC's Minnesota Food Share. But absent from the list of donors is U.S. Representative Ilhan Omar or any other elected official or candidate, period. None of them were part of the donor list at all.
Which at first you would think is quite odd because
Right.
generally
So,
politicians are all over trying to get their names in something
First
like that.
thing that happens is Ilhan Omar shows up with a video crew and wants to shoot a.
Yeah, she shows up to a restaurant.
Yeah, she shows up to a restaurant where they're doing a fundraising thing for this particular program. She shows up with a video crew and wants to do a ad campaign. Or a campaign ad. You know, whatever.
Amazing. You switch those two words and it's an entirely different thing.
It really is, isn't it? But she wants to do a campaign ad at the restaurant with all this stuff going on. Essentially being like, oh, hey, look at all the good things that I'm doing for the community. I'm saving the world.
elderly.
Look at me. And the Imam walks out, sees him, and is like, no, like, you didn't get permission to do this. You're not a contributor. You're not doing anything with this. So, GTFO.
And on top of that, he specifically asked that no politicians be involved because he didn't want it to be political.
Exactly. Right?
Which is why there were no politicians on that list of donors.
And so then what does Ilhan do? She goes on Twitter and makes a little tweet, and this is actually, I've got the tweet right here. I'm going to read it out to you. As Minnesotans. It's spelled Minnesotans. I'm not sure how to actually say that. Struggle with hunger. I'm partnering with @MN Food Share and other local groups that pack and deliver meals to students and families. Chip in $5 today and power their efforts to keep our communities fed. #Giving Tuesday now. #Give it home Minnesota.
Seems innocent enough.
And so she has a link tagged on this Twitter that goes to secure.actblue.com. Now, this site has absolutely no ties to the organization that she's referencing.
So it's a fake.
The donations did not go to the charity at all. Completely fake.
Huh.
Completely false pretenses.
Wasn't that the...
None of it is right.
Wasn't that the same website thing she used for her campaign?
I don't know. I have no idea. But she later shut the tweet down because the the executive director of the GMCC, came out and tweeted same day. So this was actually a couple weeks ago. So this was on May 5th is when all this went down.
Right.
He came out and tweeted, "I am the executive director of GMCC Minnesota Food Share is our program. Ilhan Omar had nothing to do with this project.
Oof.
I do not know where this money is going to."
Oof.
Right?
And that's when the tweet was deleted.
That was the tweet. That was when the tweet was deleted. And I believe later on, so a few days later, I actually think it was like a couple of days ago, maybe even, they then ended up, she put out a real link and is now actually supporting the charity. But the original stuff, completely unaffiliated, and nobody knows where the money went.
Well, follow-up that I remember hearing this morning is the organization got in touch with her in her campaign, basically asking what's going on.
Is that what happened?
And they said, I think she sent out a tweet later that all the funds will now be going to that thing. So where were they going before?
Right.
And a lot of this may not actually be illegal. Shady, absolutely. But what I do know is illegal is raising money under false pretenses, or however the law is actually written.
So, yeah,
raising money for charity when you're not actually raising it for charity. I know
Right.
that is illegal.
Right. And so this is an additional tweet from that same executive director said, "We have now confirmed that the funds that at Ilhan, Minnesota, or MN, solicited on our behalf earlier this week will go to MN Food Share." So yeah, they were not originally going to MN Food Share, but they are now.
Oh, now.
Going. They will. They will.
Well, then it's
will
totally
go.
fine. It's all
Will go
kosher. It
to
is all
donate
kosher
to
now.
our efforts. Notably, she did not correct her earlier statement that Ilhan Omar had nothing to do with the project. So, essentially, she got caught doing shady shit, and so now she's giving money to the charity.
Good
on
for
top
her.
of all the other stuff.
Good for her, I think.
Every time I see her name in anything anymore, I'm just like, oh gosh, what did she do
What now?
Like, what am I about to find out that is going to ruin my day now?
We were fine. We were all fine.
Yeah. So there's our Ilhan Omar report of the day.
It just makes your head split in a special way, you know?
Yeah. Like a cord of wood.
Like a cord of wood.
So that was my bad news. What's your bad news?
Mine,
Just disappointing news.
disappointing news.
The disappointment of the day.
Mine, so we posted on our Facebook PragerU
Oh, yes.
video clip.
Yes, we did.
And
It's a wonderful little clip if you want to go be angry.
yes, at least for me.
So Trevor triggered in 3, 2.
So the PragerU thing is covering, I don't even know this guy. I've never seen him before. Anand Giridharadas, I believe is how it's pronounced. I don't know. And it's kind of interesting. This the video that how MSNBC titled it was we are not in this together, or something like that, which I agree with. But his reasonings, I don't.
Together alone.
If there's phrases I could go the rest of my life without hearing, we're all in this together. These unprecedented times. What's the other one? New normal.
New normal. That's one that I could burn with a
Yeah.
gallon of gasoline.
Those can all disappear and I'd be fine.
Oh, yeah.
Because I don't want new normal. I want old normal. And not right before coronavirus normal. I want old.
Old normal.
Old.
Let's just...
Let's just hold that rewind button for a while.
I mean, you know what? I'm not okay with anybody wearing bell-bottom pants, but I'd rewind to that.
If that's what it takes.
That's what it takes.
So I don't even remember what the PragerU thing was covering. It was fine, whatever it was, whatever. But that's not what I attached to.
It was covering freedom obsessed.
Freedom obsessed.
Yes, that was what its tagline was.
And that does irritate me the way that, and we've got the clip. I'll pull.
I'm not freedom obsessed at all.
Me neither.
No,
Not in the slightest.
not in the slightest.
And under normal, if that was all he mentioned there, I would have gone off on that too. So it's a whole nother thing. But looks around the room.
Freedom, or peace. Yes, well, continuing on.
Anyway, but yeah, if that's all he latched on to, I would have been annoyed at that and probably would have still done something that I'm about to do. But what I latched on to was a certain statement in there. And I went back and I found the actual full MSNBC clip to try to make sure I had the full context of it,
Right.
because that's what you should do when you hear someone, even an organization you agree with. PragerU is pretty great. Even when an organization you agree with plays a clip, you should try
Always
to
do your own homework.
find the original clip
Mm-hmm.
and find the full context. PragerU did pretty good and took the full context of what he was talking about in that segment. But yeah, so one of these mice controls, doesn't control it. Use the pad. So we'll play this and then we'll do a quick break.
And then we'll dive into it.
And then we'll see what kind of rabbit hole we dive into. So yeah,
It's
this
going to be a good one.
This is Anand Giridharadas. And yeah, this is, I don't even remember what what question he was asked beforehand. Something about I'll drag this up where it's supposed to be. There he is. So yeah, this is what he said.
And one of the fundamental questions to me is what's going to be our relationship to government, the idea of government after this. And we kind of look at it at three levels this week. There is a primordial American tradition going back to the founders of being freedom obsessed, even though we're a country founded on slavery and genocide, being freedom obsessed to the...
All right. That's as far as I can make it.
Do I need to take a break for you to calm down before?
Yeah, we'll cut to a break. But that's as far as I made it. I stopped paying attention to the rest of the PragerU thing right after that.
He couldn't anymore.
I couldn't. PragerU is great. I didn't care. Didn't care.
You didn't even make it through the segment that they were going to talk about.
No, I didn't care.
They specifically played this part so that they could debunk it.
I know. No, but they didn't. But I did actually go back and actually watch the PragerU thing.
Oh, that's good.
They didn't cover this slavery and
Right, they
genocide.
didn't go.
They
It
didn't
was like a
cover it.
3-minute video, so they didn't cover everything.
they just did the freedom
I
obsessed.
mean, honestly, we're not going to be able to cover everything in what he just said because it would take us an hour to go over. Because he's getting that from the what the hell is the name of that 1619 or whatever the hell that CNN and those guys put together that went over the founding Jamestown and all of that.
Sure.
You have no idea what I'm talking about. do
No,
you?
I probably do, but I don't know.
We're gonna have an interesting conversation later.
I probably do, but I don't recognize the name you're trying to tell me. But yeah. So yeah, we'll come back and I'll take some chill pills. I already took some, but I'll take some more.
Don't take too many more. It could be an overdose
Could
if you
be.
take too many of those.
Yeah,
All right,
we'll be back.
back in a second. welcome back. 1619 Project was what I was talking about from the New York Times.
Yeah.
So he does know what that one is.
Yep. And it's Bolshevik at best.
At best. Complete and utter nonsense.
All right. America is freedom obsessed, which is ironic because it was founded on slavery and genocide. I'm just touching on the slavery end of it because genocide, Andrew Jackson, name a Democrat. Name a Democratic president. Yeah. And
I mean, okay. I have one key argument on that. Name one other country, sovereignty, anything in the history of the world that defeated another nation and then let them keep their sovereignty, have their own land, and tried to help them afterwards. Name one.
maybe kind of argue Rome, but not really.
Not really, because they didn't do that.
You had to swear to be
you had to
Roman.
swear to Rome. You had to be part of Rome. The Indian nations are not part of America.
They're
They
technically-
have their own sovereign nation.
They're technically their own countries.
Each and every one of them.
We've still screwed them over. But
Oh yeah, we screwed them over hard. I'm not arguing that part. That's valid. It probably would have been better to just
embrace them.
embrace them, bring them all into the
just-
United States. But they didn't
just
want
join
to.
us, yeah.
And that's not what they wanted. So, they did the best they could with what they had.
All right. So I'll start off with a question to Mike, and I asked him this before. Name a slave-owning founding father besides George Washington and Thomas Jefferson without Googling.
Besides,
Name a founding father besides George Washington or Thomas Jefferson.
yeah, I could just throw out some founding father names, but I don't actually know if any of them had slaves or not.
So yeah. So there's that.
So,
That's my first point. What's latched onto is the most apparent of the founding fathers is, well, George Washington had slaves. Yes, he did. Thomas Jefferson had slaves. Yes, he did. So it was founded on slavery. No, it was not.
James Madison.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Richard Henry Lee.
Yes, a number of them had slaves. So first of all, with George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, what's ironic about them is they were some of the largest supporters
Actually-
of getting rid of slaves.
Funny enough, I think the list of slaveholders includes almost every single one of the Federalists.
Shocker.
Shocker.
And the Federalists became...
Other than Alexander Hamilton, who did not own slaves. But I think he's the only one of the Federalists that isn't on the list of slaveholding founding fathers.
And the Federalist Party dissolved into which party?
That would be. Was there another
The-
party before the Democrats? Was before that?
No, the Democrats were always there, but the Federalists dissolved into the Re-Democrat Party.
Right. Right, because it was the Re-Democrats and the Whigs, and then the Whigs became the Democratic Republic Party, which then became the Republican Party.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. So there's that. But anyway, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson's, they were both actually very abolitionist supporters. They were big supporters of, well, they owned slaves. Yes, because it was illegal for them to get rid of slaves in their state.
Mm-hmm.
They could not legally get rid of their slaves. Well, then why didn't they do it and then suffer the repercussions? Because then they couldn't be abolitionists. They'd be locked in jail.
Right. It's hard to do things politically when you're in prison.
So, for example, George Washington In Virginia, let's see, I've got a bunch of tabs open, so it might take me a second here and there.
Didn't you have handouts for me?
That's not yet.
Oh, that's not yet.
That's
Okay.
to come.
That's he brought special things for me to read.
So George Washington once wrote in a letter to Robert Morris, another founding father, I can only say that there is not a man living who wishes more sincerely than I do to see a plan adopted for the abolition of slavery. That does not sound like someone who enjoys having slaves. Thomas Jefferson worked with the legislator in Virginia, and so did George Washington, to try to enact anti-slavery laws. In fact, George Washington was paramount in Virginia becoming one of the first states to stop the importation of slaves from other countries. So there's that to help stop the slave trade. What else? I got pages of things. Thomas Jefferson. Let's see. No, we'll go to Ben Franklin. Ben Franklin. This will lead me to you handing you some papers.
To me handing myself some papers.
Yeah. So before I do that, excuse me. George Washington was able to help create a loophole in the Virginia law where slaves could be freed upon the death of the owner as part of the will of the owner. And in George Washington's will, you can read the entire will. But in it, he not only calls for his slaves to be freed from bondage, but he also calls for them to be giving food and shelter and clothing and an education so they can support themselves. And any that do not wish to support themselves should be taken care of on the property still. George Washington even, on his property in Mount Vernon, he was actually losing money from his slaves because he was not working them like a normal person would. And he could have offset that by selling some of his slaves, which would have given him a lot of money. But he didn't do that because he thought it was wrong, and he thought selling his slaves to help his slaves seemed counterintuitive. And then even upon his death, he even specifically mentions in some of the paintings of George Washington, you'll see a little black boy or black man standing next to George Washington. That was his personal assistant, and sometimes he called him his son. His name was William Lee, and he helped George Washington out a lot during the Revolutionary War. And in his will, he leaves Lee with 30 pence or 30 gold or whatever. He leaves him some sum of money every month, basically. So he has an income for the rest of his life, and affords him the same things as the rest of the slaves of having shelter, food, blah, 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 blah. That does not sound like some rich, white, slave-owning, white supremacist type person to me. No. Thomas Jefferson wanted to do the same thing, but his life was so ruined by a very jealous former employee that he had no money when he died, and the state seized his slaves and his property to pay off debts that he had, so he was not able to free his slaves in that regards, but he did all kinds of things to try to make it so. And then third one, Benjamin Franklin. He was one of the original abolitionists of the time, and he talks about how Americans attempted to end slavery, but the British government would not allow them to end it. He said, a disposition to abolish slavery prevails in North America, that many of Pennsylvanians have set their slaves at liberty, and that even the Virginia Assembly have petitioned the king for permission to make a law for preventing the importation of more into that colony. This request, however, will probably not be granted, as their former laws of that kind have always been repealed. So they've been trying to get rid of slavery for a while. This was in 1773 that Benjamin Franklin said that. So now I'm going to hand you some papers here. Let's see, which one do I want to hand you? Which one? Which one do you want, left or right?
Left.
As he reaches for the right. His right, my left.
There's literally a screen blocking the other one. I could only reach for one.
It's as if I intended it to be so.
Oh, hey, look at this.
So what I just handed you,
Pretty.
what I handed Mike, is a printed out copy of the Declaration of Independence.
Declaration of Independence.
Without all the fancy cursive that some people can't read. And even people that read cursive have struggle with reading.
The ye old English that I think
Old
most
with-
people struggle with.
Old with an E.
Extra letters and...
So I hold in my hand what's considered the original rough draft from Thomas Jefferson of the Declaration of Independence. And I'm going to start reading, and tell me to stop when you find something different.
Okay.
All right? We're not going through the whole thing, so don't worry. Just tell me to stop when I say something that's not the same.
Okay.
I think it's a little different at the beginning. Already, but-
I was just going to let you go.
yeah, no. So it starts with when on mine. So
Stop.
yeah, exactly. So go to when.
Go to when. Okay.
When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for people to advance from their subordination.
Stop.
All right. So it's different. And it's very different. In which they have hitherto remained, and assume among the powers of the earth the equal and independent station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them.
Oh, stop.
Yeah. It's a little different.
Like, wait a minute.
little different. So in the final draft of the Declaration of Independence, it's where is it?
Right there.
Right
It's
there.
the middle one.
Yeah.
Yep. That's the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States.
So in that one, there are 27 points of what's the word? Grievances. 27 grievances the
Right.
colonies have with the king.
Okay.
In Jefferson's, there's only 24 in the rough draft. There's only 24 points. They're all pretty much the same, except for one that stands out mostly. In the rough draft, he's refused to assent to laws. He's forbidden his governors. He's refused to pass other laws. Dissolved representative houses. Blah 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 blah. And then we get to the 24th point in the original rough draft, which it comes. It falls in line. The one before it, he has incited treasonable insurrections in our fellow subjects. So whatever is similar to that. I think it's like the 25th one or something like that.
He's done what?
He has incited treasonable insurrections in our fellow subjects.
Insurrections. Oh, that's like the last one.
Yeah. Okay. So
Domestic insurrections among us.
So in the last one, it is. I'll show you on here, on the camera here, but the last one is that big compared to all the rest of them above it. So it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 lines, where the rest of them are 1 or 2 lines. And you can find this. We'll probably put the links in the video and description and stuff like that to things like this.
Post them to our Facebook and stuff.
Because these are fascinating. You should read them, because reading things like this helps you understand the intent behind everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And also, fun fact, if you're to ask people what the first, what the original, if you were to ask someone, what's the first governing document of the United States?
I would think most people would probably say the Declaration.
The Declaration?
Mm-hmm.
Or would they say the Constitution? Because it's got the Bill of Rights and everything.
Right. Well, I mean, I would probably say the Declaration.
Right, you would say
but
Declaration because...
I would also think I'd be wrong because I would think that there would be, drafts and things, letters that came before.
The drafts weren't signed and authorized. And all
Right,
that
so
stuff,
the first official document I would think would be the Declaration, but most people would
Right.
probably think maybe the Constitution.
And even today, a lot of people say the Constitution does not, or the Declaration is not like a governing document because it technically doesn't really have any laws or anything like that in it. But if you go to Article 7 of the Constitution, where is it? It's after Article 7. It's right. It's right before they sign their names, and it says in there, having assembled 12 years on the 12th year of our freedom, or something like that. I'm guessing you're looking it up because you're clicking and searching.
Trying to.
Yeah, the Constitution is dated to 12 years after July 4th, 1776, which is when the Declaration of Independence is. So the Declaration of Independence is the original governing document of the land.
Okay, so we're looking, you said it was after Article 7?
Yep, right before they sign all their names and states and all that stuff.
Okay. Oh, geez. That's Article 2. The ratification of the conventions of 9 states shall be sufficient for the establishment of this Constitution between the states so ratifying the same. Done in convention by the unanimous consent of the states present the 17th day of September in the year of our Lord, 1787, and of the independence of the United States of America, the 12th, in witness that whereof we have hereunto subscribed our names.
So there you go, 12 years after freedom was declared. And whenever the President of the United States signs something into law, it is dated to the Declaration of Independence, not the Constitution of the United States. It has similar wording, but changed the 12 to whatever the number is now. I can't do math on the fly like that. Anyway,
I can't either.
this 24th point is, again, Thomas Jefferson wrote this
That would be
draft.
244.
Thank you.
That's just what calculators are for.
This is the 24th point of grievance that Jefferson wrote in the original draft for the Declaration of Independence. He has waged cruel war against human nature itself, violating its most sacred rights of life and liberty, in the persons of a distant people. What's funny about this is, it might not be in here, but some of the founding documents and stuff, you can't read them on the air because it has words. So if you hear me skip a word, that's why.
Because it has words, right? Words that you shouldn't speak.
Even though it's a document about governing an entity of the government. Yeah.
Yeah. They're Spanish words.
Spanish. I can't say it. Sorry. So violating its most sacred rights of life and liberty in the persons of a distant people who never offended him, captivating and carrying them into slavery in another hemisphere, or to incur miserable death in their transportation thither. So he's talking about the slave trade. King George did slave trade with people that never attacked England or anything like that. And he's letting it happen, and he doesn't care. This is piratical warfare. He's calling him a pirate. He's the worst pirate he's ever heard of. So that's a big word. The opprobrium of infidel powers is the warfare of and this is all capitalized, Christian. So he's basically saying, okay, I'll read it and then I'll is the warfare of the Christian king of Great Britain, determined to keep open a market where men should be bought and sold. So he's penning here. He's got all bold, Christian and men. So he's kind of pointing out that the Christian king. He says he's Christian, and he's putting people into slavery. And there's tons of quotes I could go through about how the founding fathers thought it was wrong as Christians to have slaves. So this is why this is a summary of the aneurysm that I had from this 5 seconds of that clip.
Okay, so real quick. Sorry, I just noticed something as you were talking, because I had the link that you sent earlier with the Constitution on it. The one that I pulled up and read for you is a completely different link, right? So the one that I pulled up for you has the year of our Lord 1787 and of the independence of the United States of America, the 12th, right? So the one that you sent me, the article that you sent me that has the Constitution all written out, does not have any of that in it. It summarizes it. Yeah, the Avalon one.
Yeah, that's the Confederate Constitution.
Oh, is it? Okay, so that's the one.
So that would be why it's different.
That's why it's different.
He almost had a deep state thing going on there.
I almost had a conspiracy theories. I mean, we could conspiracy theory this particular topic for like 3 episodes. I know enough about this to go down rabbit holes you wouldn't believe.
So this point continues. He has prostituted his negative for suppressing every legislative attempt to prohibit or to restrain this another big word, execrable commerce, and that this assemblage of horrors might want no fact of distinguished dye. He is now exciting those very people to rise in arms among us, and to purchase that liberty of which he has deprived them, and murdering the people upon whom he also obtruded them, thus paying off former crimes committed against the liberties of one people with crimes which he urges them to commit against the lives of another. So not only is he enslaving people that did absolutely nothing to England, he's doing it under the name of Christianity, which they find abhorrent.
Mm-hmm.
And he's trading men. And that's something too. Like he doesn't use another word here. I'm not censoring a word. He uses men.
Right. So
he's not saying black person. He's not saying Chinese person. He's saying men. No race, just men. He's buying and selling men. And then then to top it all off, because the colonies are being all rebellious and everything, he's having his troops and everyone tell the slaves, hey, if you rise up in rebellion against the colonists, we'll give you freedom. What?
So, I'm not going to let you not own slaves. Well, we're going to rebel. All right. Hey, slaves, I'm going to let you go if you fight them.
Exactly. What? So
The hell?
just a little grievance there. Just a little grievance.
What the hell?
And that leads me on to... Wrong one.
There we go.
Very light Wilhelm scream. There we go.
Is this loud enough?
Might have been just loud enough.
Just
Just
too
loud. And that leads me to fast forward to the Civil War.
I thought you were planning on summarizing this.
This is the summary. This is as much summary as I can do.
Let me explain. No, that'll take too long. Let me summarize.
I'm trying to summarize the summary. So this will be this Civil War, it's not the whole Civil War. Not. But this got my mind revving on the whole Civil War thing because Mike and I both served missions for our church in the South.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you heard this while you were there, but for me, I heard it was not the Civil War. It was
state rights.
No, I heard it was not the Civil War. It was the War of Northern Aggression.
Oh, yes. War of Northern Aggression. That one, too. Got that one a lot.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure South Carolina fired first, but, whatever.
Whatever.
That's neither here nor there in this argument. But then, along with that, is what Mike said is about states' rights. A state's right to what is the follow-up?
Their right to do as they damn well please.
Oh, to own slaves. That's a good right to have. It's a good right.
Yeah, all men created
But
equal.
then, if you actually read the Constitution of the Confederacy, it's not about states' rights.
Talk about states' rights being infringed. Oh
So-
my gosh.
I'll pull it up here so it can be seen on the big screen.
So what we are seeing for those joining us on podcast is a page full of words.
A page full of words and some numbers on
And
the
some,
left side.
some numbers that's, categorizing the lines of. This is the one that I was looking at.
Yep,
That
this is what you were looking at.
Wrong.
That was slightly different from the Constitution we all know and love. Should all know and love.
Should being the operative word there.
So this is under, again, you can find this all over the place.
We'll post some links.
Yeah. And this is under Article 4, Section 3, that stanza, line, whatever, 3. And I should highlight it on here so it can be seen more better, but see if it works. Paper's covering it. And there. This one right here.
Oh,
This one.
yes.
So in here, it says the Confederate States may acquire new territory. Okay, they're considering themselves a sovereign entity. They should be able to acquire new territory and all that stuff. And Congress shall have power to legislate and provide governments for the inhabitants of all territory belonging to the Confederate States. Fine. lying without the limits of the several states, and may permit them at such times and in such manner as may by law provide to form states to be admitted into the Confederacy. Seems reasonable enough. That's how the United States is.
Right.
In all such territory, the institution of, can't say the word, slavery, as it now exists in the Confederate States, shall be recognized and protected, I think that's a typo, by Congress and by the territorial government. So they have to have slavery, or
So will be recognized and protected by. So that, and the inhabitants shall have the right to.
shall have the right to
So
that.
does that mean that they have to, or is that that means that the state has to allow it? The state isn't allowed to not allow it, is what that means. So the state is required.
Yeah, so,
to have
as it now exists
slavery.
in all such
As-
territory in the institution of, can't say the word, slavery, as it now exists in the Confederate States, shall be recognized and protected by Congress and by the territorial government, and the inhabitants of the several Confederate States and territories shall have the right to take to such territory any slaves lawfully held by them in any of the states or territories of the Confederate States. Exactly.
There's only one way to feel about what we just read. And that is the way.
The Wilhelm way.
The Wilhelm way.
But yeah, that's that's interesting.
Well,
And that's after earlier in this document, they talk about exactly what slavery is and how it all works.
And that is the Confederacy.
Yeah.
That is what the Civil War was fought against. That is the real reason it was fought. And it's the real reason I'm damn glad we won.
Yes. And also on top of that, the United States was the first to get rid of slavery.
Oh, yeah.
But Mexico passed a law.
well,
That
but-
took effect 200 years after they passed the law, which was after the United States did the Civil War.
But wait a minute. Nobody else practices slavery anymore.
Brazil imported more slaves than any other country in the world. Africa had probably even more slaves than Brazil.
Oh, yeah, but that was a long time ago.
It was only 1.5 million white people that were enslaved in Africa.
But that was a long time ago.
And, let's just ignore that the Dutch were the ones that were doing everything. Let's just ignore that.
Yeah, well. But we can't hold them accountable.
No, we can't hold them accountable.
We can hold ourselves accountable for things that our ancestors did,
Yes.
forever ago. And I mean, it's not like slavery still happens in the world today.
And so long as you ignore the fact that the first slave owner in the colonies was a black man owning another black man, if you ignore that, if you ignore that, then it's fine.
Yeah,
And
well,
slavery, like Mike said, slavery still continues today, and it's probably worse slavery, I imagine. It's the sex trafficking, slavery, children, women, men, bought, sold, traded.
Yeah.
For terrible stuff.
all kinds of awful
And,
things.
Yeah.
But
So
we shouldn't worry about that. We should worry about making
we should worry about
reparations for things that nobody currently alive ever thought of participating in themselves
and that was
in a free country.
actively fought against in the founding of the United States. But the 3/5 clause
But if they were so against it, why didn't they just write it out at the beginning?
because they needed all of the states to break away from England.
Yeah, there's a reason I made that person sound like a Muppet.
They needed all of the states. Otherwise, it would not work.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
We could literally go off on this topic for hours because there are so many things from talking about the founding of our country being, is it in Jamestown or is it in Plymouth? Because if it's in Jamestown, yeah, sure, whatever. They had slavery, they did awful things. If it's in Plymouth, just go study the history of Plymouth. Like, really?
And
If that's the founding of our nation is fantastic.
if you study the writings and letters and all that of the founding fathers, you will find that they studied Plymouth more than they studied Jamestown.
Right. But anyway, we are out of time for today.
Out of time.
Out of time.
We have to be out of time.
We have to be out of time. Otherwise, we will go on for forever.
And-
So,
3 days later.
as
And I'll tell you one.
as many things as we could go into in this, we will post some links and some things for you guys to study in our descriptions. And let us know if there's anything else you guys want us to delve into on our next episode. Until then, we will catch you guys later.
Bye.
That's gonna do terrible things to you. He's back. He's a morbid little beast.